I was 10 years old when I had an experience I still haven't forgotten. Those were the days when all the kids used to actually go outside and have fun, or at least have fun together in person. So basically, we were in the middle of a hide and seek phase. Every day after school, the six of us would go to someone's house to play hide and seek. Normally, we would go to Jake's house since he was an only child and both his parents were working, so he was home alone most of the time. Also, he had a big house, so that was an added bonus. We'd spend hours playing that game, with each of us being the seeker at least once. One Sunday, we decided to go to another house. I won't mention his name. I'll call him Cal for the purpose of the story. He too had a big house, however, it was separated from the rest of the community, and it was old. He had told us that there were many secret tunnels to and from the house, which were created decades ago during the war. All this excited us, and so, for the first time, we were headed towards his house for our game. When we arrived, we were at awe at how big the house actually was. I mean, I'm pretty sure if we played hide and seek in the whole house, it'd take hours for people to find anybody, let alone hide. So we restricted ourselves to the ground floor. Before we began, however, we asked Cal if he knew any entrances to any secret passages. I know one, but I have no clue where it leads to, replied Cal. Didn't you ever try and explore it? I asked. My parents didn't bother exploring it, and neither did their parents, so no one but the people who built and lived here first knows. All I know is they told me to stay away from the entrance since I could get lost in there. We listened in awe as he added a word of caution. Don't try and go in there to hide. All of us could get into real trouble. We all promised that we wouldn't. We had something to drink and then decided to commence the game. Cal played Seeker first since he knew the best hiding spots and none of us wanted to spend the rest of our lifetime looking for him. He stood in the kitchen, facing the corner, and started counting to 100. Everyone scattered around the house, trying to look for a good hiding spot. I spent about a minute while trying my best to avoid other people. I was in what I assumed was the guest's bedroom at the time. Ready or not, here I come. There was a large wardrobe in the bedroom, so I opened the door and found that another boy, Jim, was hiding there already. Close the door, he hissed, or he'll get us both. I was running out of time and options, so I closed his door and climbed into the adjacent wardrobe. It was very spacious and empty, except for a few hangers and stickers. I discovered that I could lock the door from the inside, so I did, just in case Cal tried the door. I sat against the slab of wood which separated my wardrobe from Jim's. I'd been sitting in there for 15 minutes when I heard a click and a creak from the other side. I thought I heard Jim whisper, "What?" I gently knocked against the separator and asked what happened. No response. I thought he just shifted his posture or something. 5 minutes later, I heard some scraping noises. It freaked me out since it was dark inside, and I decided that I had enough. I unlocked the door and got out of the wardrobe. The room was empty. Cal clearly hadn't checked in here yet. I cautiously opened the door of the wardrobe in which Jim was hiding. At first, I saw nothing except pure blackness. I could make out a dark square outline in the back end of the space, but as I looked closer, I saw something and I froze. I saw a pair of eyes staring back at me. I figured they were unmistakably Jim's, but something Something came over me and I was scared. I couldn't move or say anything. Then slowly, I saw a grin, which revealed a set of sharp, bloody teeth. It was then I regained control of my body. I jumped back, slammed the door shut, locked it from the outside, and screamed at the top of my lungs. The screams alerted the others, and Cal came running in first. He asked me what happened. I just stammered and pointed towards the wardrobe. By now, the others had also come in, and together they ran to the wardrobe and opened the door. I couldn't look until someone screamed. I opened my eyes and saw Jim lying on the ground with a pool of blood around his head. Behind him was what looked like an entrance to a tunnel. No one wanted to touch him until Cal decided to turn him over. He jumped back and yelled. Jim had no eyes. He just had gaping holes where his eyes should have been. He slammed the door shut and we ran out of the room to get help. Cal called his parents and dialed 911. I just sat down, curled up into a ball, and cried. In 10 minutes, the police arrived, along with Cal's parents. They asked us to take them to the room, and we did. They opened the wardrobe, keeping their guns raised. We were shocked to find no body. The blood, however, remained, but accompanied by a trail of blood that led into the dark passage. The police called for backup and asked Cal's parents if they knew where the passage led to. They shook their heads, white with shock. One of the policemen asked us to accompany him to the police station for questioning. 3 other men, armed with handguns and flashlights, walked into the dark passage with one man guarding the entrance. At the police station, we were questioned repeatedly, and I was the one who had to answer most of the questions since I was the first witness. I told them about the square shape with Jim's eyes and that awful grin. I'm not sure if they believed me. To be honest, I don't blame them. I even found it hard to believe such a story coming from a 10-year-old like myself, but I know what I saw. I found out later that day that the 3 policemen who went inside did not report back. A search team of 5 men went in after them, and they didn't report back either. The theory is that they got lost. Something tells me that's not what happened. Cal and his family moved out of the house after that. We grew distant since neither of us could face each other without remembering the horrors we encountered that day. Cal grew up to become the smiling personality we all know and love. The house turned to ruin after a lightning from a freak storm set it on fire. To this day, no one has a proper explanation for what happened to Jim, or what happened to even the policeman. But some believe in the creature I had seen. Some chose to believe that they had simply gotten lost within the tunnels. But I assure you, what I saw was real. And that thing, whatever it is, could still be out there, lurking in the shadows, hiding in those tunnels, waiting for its next victim. It was a late November day, and there were already early Christmas shoppers out and about fighting over parking spaces at the local town center outlet mall. I was at the grocery store with my mom the day the missing posters appeared on every corner in our little Midwestern town. There was an immediate panic that sent shock and paranoia and fear in the mothers of Everett, a city where everyone knew everyone. Sammy, 10 years old, brown hair, and blue eyes, was last seen in Everett supposedly on his way to school. He was wearing a blue and white striped t shirt and had a red book bag. There was a month-long search for Sammy. Some of the parents even claimed they had seen a strange vehicle the day he went missing. Parents became extra watchful and grew more paranoid, especially when another child was almost abducted on her way to school. At least that was the rumor. The truth was that no one could prove that the supposed almost kidnapping even happened. But what everyone started to realize is that no one in town was related to Sammy or even knew his parents. Was Sammy new here? Had his family just moved in? There were no records that he was even registered in the only elementary school in the tiny town. Yet the missing posters went out to law enforcement, and also the FBI had Sammy listed in the database of missing and exploited children. One afternoon, the local police chief received an anonymous email from someone claiming to know the whereabouts of Sammy. The mysterious stranger provided coordinates that led to an old rundown warehouse at the end of town. I remember hearing about it from my father, who was good friends with our local police chief. When the police showed up at the old warehouse, they were able to enter from a back door. Guns were drawn, of course, expecting to find someone there, yet the only thing they found was an old laptop with a screen image of Sammy. It was odd, and after further investigating, it led nowhere. Computer forensic analysts found nothing on the laptop that would lead to an arrest. The search for little Sammy went cold. Several years passed, and I was majoring in journalism in college. And as a project for my class, we had to write about something odd that had happened in our local town. We had to complete the project by the end of the week, and I set to work on trying to think of something odd or even exciting about the small town of Everett. Then I remembered the cold case of Sammy, that kid who'd gone missing. I did some quick research online to see if anyone had ever found anything since it hadn't been mentioned in years. Turns out there was nothing about the event except, oddly, how many people claimed that they never had seen Sammy or even met him. He had appeared out of nowhere on those missing posters that went up all over town. Initially, there were so called witnesses interviewed on the local news that had seen Sammy the day he disappeared, claiming to have seen black cars in the area that morning. When they were interviewed by law enforcement, they seemed to have realized the witnesses just wanted their 15 minutes of fame. Our town even went nearly bankrupt trying to find Sammy. It caused rifts between families so bad that they don't speak to this very day. People made wild accusations against one another, and a neighbor accused another neighbor of knowing more than they said. They stopped respecting the police, thinking they weren't doing enough to help find the missing little boy. Eventually it died down, but things were never quite the same. I pulled up Sammy's missing page on the internet that had been created by our small town. There was his fresh face with little freckles and missing front teeth. I happened to click on a link to other pages similar to the one our police created for Sammy. When I did, I noticed something strange. There were other boys with different names, only they all had Sammy's face. I thought I was going crazy for a moment until I went further down the rabbit hole. One of the links led me to a page on artificial intelligence. Computers were now able to create faces of people that didn't exist. One of the faces was, in fact, that of Sammy. I realize that this is a long shot, but I am convinced some artificial intelligence is behind the so called missing posters popping up all over towns just like mine. Further investigation into those towns also led me to articles on how the disappearing children caused this town to riot in the streets. In one town, they even burned the city to the ground. There was another town in New Jersey that is now looking for little Isaac. And you guessed it, it is the same photo of Sammy. Last night was by far the most terrifying night I've ever experienced in my life. I'm honestly surprised I'm here right now. If I hadn't listened to my instincts, I would most definitely have faced a gruesome death. So please, take my advice and hide if you hear someone whistling in the middle of the night. Last night, I was super excited as this is the first 2 day weekend I've had in over 2 months. My big plans were to buy tons of snacks, set my recliner up to be my own little paradise, and binge watch some Netflix. I know, boring, but hey, I'm 30 years old and I've been done with the party lifestyle for a while now. Anyways, after probably 5 hours straight of shoveling candy down my throat and watching my favorite shows, I decided it was time to get some sleep. It was about 2 a.m. and way later than I've stayed up in months. After cleaning my mess up and shutting the TV off, I brushed my teeth and climbed into bed. After 15 minutes or so, I felt my eyes getting really heavy and I was in between that stage of being awake and asleep. That's when I heard it, a faint whistling. My ears perked out and I listened closely. It sounded like it was coming from my next door neighbors. We have very thin walls in our apartment, so it's not unusual to hear him at times, but never at 2 in the morning. The whistle was the tune of Silent Night. The whistle made its way from my neighbors to out in the hallway that separated our doors. A feeling of dread washed over me, and somehow I knew I needed to hide. I got up as quickly and as quietly as I could and ran into my closet, closing the door all but a crack, so whoever was outside my door wouldn't hear the click of the closet shutting. Benny, it sounded like my neighbor, only his voice was somehow off. What I heard next made my heart pound in my chest. My deadbolt unlocked somehow. There was no way he could have unlocked it, not from outside the door. I began to sweat and was struggling to keep my breathing under control as the most intense fear I've ever felt took over my body. I'm coming, Benny, his voice changing pitch at the wrong times. My door slowly creaked open. I heard a soft dragging sound followed by a heavy thud with each step he took. I could hear his ragged breathing, and then he started whistling again. The same tune as before, only now louder. I was fighting tears as he slowly crept closer and closer to my bedroom. I prayed for this thing to go away as I slammed my eyes shut. I knew this thing wasn't my neighbor or even human for that matter. Everything about it fell off. It stopped just outside my bedroom and didn't make a sound. From where I was in the closet, I could see the entrance to my bedroom door. I wish I had never opened my eyes back up, but of course, I did. At the very top left corner, I saw a deformed head poking in. The top of my door frame was at least 6.5 feet tall, and this thing was hunched over. It was huge. I couldn't make out any details of its face because my lights were off. The only thing that was lighting the room came from the streetlights shining in through my bedroom window. I'm actually glad I couldn't see its face because I probably would have fainted out of fear. Benny, it whispered. I squeezed my eyes shut again as I heard it enter my room. I could smell it, and it stunk horribly of rotted death. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I thought for sure I was going to die. I could hear it yank the blankets off my bed as it searched for me, letting out a grunt of confusion when it realized I wasn't there. It sat still, panting heavily, as it must have been figuring out what to do next. Then it started slowly making its way out of my room once again, whistling. I heard my front door shut, and I finally breathed a sigh of relief, not realizing I've been holding my breath the entire time. I listened for a few minutes before leaving the closet, and as I sat there, I heard another door from across the hall open. What the fuck? My other neighbor, Tommy, stated after a few minutes. His voice was cut off before he could finish his sentence, and I heard a couple of loud thuds followed by silence. I ended up staying in my closet the whole night and woke up about an hour ago. There were police everywhere in our apartment complex as someone must have found Tommy's body. I haven't been questioned yet, but I'm sure I will be. I can't tell the truth. They'll think I'm a psycho and probably suspect me of killing Tommy. I'm going to lie and tell them I was asleep and act like I have no idea what's going on. Needless to say, I have a feeling it will be back tonight, and I'm completely terrified.